Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Yeah. Let's have a conversation. Oh, yeah. Look. Yeah. Hey. Let's have a conversation. Woo. Pick up some gems, life is all you make. Go. We keep it real, we don't talk to fake. Tell them how this talk show on the net coming for all the mates. Let's have a conversation. Woo. Pick up some gems, life is all you make. Go. We keep it real, we don't talk to fake. Tell them how this talk show on the net coming for all the mates. I think it's time to have a conversation. Let's talk about it. I think it's time to have a conversation. Let's talk about it.
Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Biggs, CEO of My Best Everyday Coaching and Consulting, and of course, the host of Real Conversations with Michelle. Thank you for those of you who have already tuned in for tonight's episode of Real Conversations, topic building resilience in the face of adversity. And for those of you who do not know me, let me give you a little bit about my background. I am a master certified life coach, as well as an executive and career coach. I started this podcast in 2020 during the pandemic, and some of the things that were going on that year, y'all. We know we had George Floyd, if you remember that timing, a lot of racial incidents that were happening, men being killed, and it was launched out of me having a necessity to find a way to help people while we were in the comfort of our home. So this podcast is ironic because this episode is a special episode, which is being developed from the same sense of emotion that was going on during that time. And I gotta be honest, elephant on the table, y'all, a lot of emotions this week around all things elections. And I decided to tap into some friends, a therapist to help me with this episode, because both of us have seen a lot of the emotion that has been on social media. We also dealing with our own emotion as well. So let me introduce to you Dr. Renee Maneh. Hello, Dr. Renee. Take yourself off of mute.
Mute. Hi, good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. Why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? But before you do that, let me also caveat this conversation with this program is an educational program like anything else. We want people to do their homework, right? To ensure that they're taking the necessary steps that will to help them, that's best for them, right? So, but I do have a professional therapist on, a licensed therapist on, y'all. I just needed a little help from my friend and Soror. So yes, please tell people about yourself, Dr. Renee.
So I'm Dr. Renee. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I own a mental health private practice based out of the Wake County area in North Carolina. But we practice all over the state, as well as all over the country and internationally at times when asked. And so I enjoy talking about current events and real life situations. And I specialize in working with women in the executive workspace, as well as I would say women of childbearing age that are encountering challenges with pregnancy, pre-pregnancy, as well as postpartum. And so that's one of my specialties is perinatal mental health and parenting. So I'm happy to be here today to kind of talk about what resilience looks like and what it is.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you asked me to partner here.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know about you, but I was dealing with my own emotion, and I have to admit it. I was dealing with my own emotion. And this conversation is not so much about the election itself. It is about building resiliency anytime you're dealing with adversity, right? And dealing with emotions that that can put us in a place where we're stuck and can't move beyond the negative emotion, right? So I'm going to start by just asking you, how are you feeling this week in
This
general?
week, I'm probably at a solid 6. That's about all I got. Solid 6.
Okay. 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 And I'll tell you, I was late in the midnight hour, late in the midnight hour yesterday morning. Yesterday, I was probably at a 3, 4.
Mm,
I would say I'm probably at a 6 around now, too. And one of the things that I notice about myself, I don't stay in that place for long, right?
mhm,
And we'll talk about how do you kind of move through the emotion in a minute. But I want people to understand that we are people too. Matter of fact, I saw a lot about our friends, fellow therapists and coaches who were talking about just that, right? We're having to deal with our emotions while we're also trying to help other people as
mhm.
well. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
How was your day yesterday? Just in thinking about doing just that.
So I had a few challenging weeks. I actually was in a space where I wasn't working in my normal space, but I was working in more of a, I would say, a more heightened capacity of
Hmm.
therapy that I don't
Hmm.
always work in. So that was already taxing. I had to travel for that work. I had to come back home and then get back into the saddle of everything and be a mom, be a wife, as well as a practice leader and therapist. And so I took a day,
Hmm.
Tuesday, thinking
Okay.
a lot of election anxiety that I felt like was transferred over to me from different conversations and sessions I had. And then I said, if I get this day, I can spend it with my son and spend it at home and with my family, and I can be better for the next day.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next day hit, or the midnight hour hit, and I said, oh, I've got a full day tomorrow. How am I going to
Mhm.
function?
Mhm.
And so I felt all of that. I processed what I needed to process. I took my time and kind of like what you said, like we try not to, as therapists or people in the healing spaces and coaches, we try not to stay there too long because there can be this whole spiraling that can happen.
Yeah.
And if we do the good work, we process it, we
Yeah.
manage it,
Yeah.
we go talk to somebody,
Yeah.
we let all the feelings come out. Because if we don't, it can come out in the wrong spaces, and that's not fair to other people, other situations. It's not fair to ourselves because then we get ourselves into mix-ups. And so I tried to do that as best I could, taking those moments and then getting back in the saddle again. And I had a full day of clients on Wednesday, clients and supervision.
Yeah.
I was like, this is going to be tough. But every time I had a moment, I did some grounding work. I did some breathing. I did some reflection. I wrote
Yeah. Yeah.
just to kind of take care of myself because unfortunately in the helping field and especially in medical field, the need doesn't stop.
Yeah.
But we have to
Yeah.
take care of ourselves. That's paramount.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yesterday for me, so I was blessed with the fact that I had my own mentor coaching session. So I worked
Mm,
with my own coach yesterday.
there it
And that was
is.
already on my schedule, right? But I'm also taking a neuroscience class, and our topic yesterday was resilience. So
Mm,
I was like, Lord, how timely for both of those things to happen. Like you said, for me to be able to vent, say what I had to say, so I could get myself together to be able to help other people. Because, like you, on calls, trying to help people kind of manage through their emotions,
mm.
right, and moving forward. So let's get into the questions that I have for you, Dr. Maneh. So, first question, let's talk about resilience and what does that mean to you?
So I, I think resilience is such a beautiful word,
Mhm.
but sometimes we get mixed up with it and kind of put it on a pedestal,
Yeah.
um, meaning that it has to always be about strength and always being about like the bounce back and the capacity to do so much. But in order to get there, there's probably some murkiness that people have to go through. There's some trials, there's some possible trauma, some adversity. And so I love the topic of it all, resilience in the face of adversity, because in order to get to that resilience, there's got to be some challenges. And
Yeah.
so I feel like it's this capacity that people have to really bounce back from any challenges that they go through. And
Yeah.
not the bounce back to be on top. That's
Right.
not it. Are we still in the game? Are we
Right.
still trying? Have we learned something? It's a lot of things. It's not just I am resilient and I have accomplished something or I've won.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm able to learn something from this. I'm able to provide something for somebody else.
Yeah. I
That's
found
really
this
good.
this quote yesterday and I posted it. I don't know where I posted it, but it says resilience is not about being unbreakable. It's
Mm,
about being able to put the pieces back together and continue on with renewed hope and courage. And I love
yeah.
that piece,
Yes.
right? Kind of speaks to what you were saying.
Yeah.
So, when people encounter adversity, what are the first steps you recommend to help to start to build resilience?
So, um, there's a few steps I would think about, but one of them that I think is so important, and we always talk about this, and I know you talk about this with coaching, is that you got to have a positive mindset.
Yeah.
And your mind is such a powerful, powerful tool. So, what we think may determine how we feel, and what we feel may determine our actions, and then it continues to go back and forth. I think
Yeah. And Dr. Maneh, you just came off a video. Let's see what's going on here.
I'll fix that. Sorry about
All right.
that.
That's okay. Love to hear your voice, but also love to see you. Give us a minute, y'all. And as she's coming back on, I would love for all of you to think about and just write down on a piece of paper where you are in this space of your emotions this week, right? So, hey, I see you back. Take yourself off of mute.
Sorry
Okay,
about
there
that.
you are. That's
It just
okay.
timed out somehow.
Yeah, yeah. I just told
Technology.
people while you were offline for a hot second to write down where they are in this space of their emotions this week on a scale of, and just use a scale of 1 to 10 too, right? So
That's
they're
good.
hearing some of our feedback.
Yeah.
They can hopefully make it relate, connect. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I think I was mentioning how to, when you encounter it, what the steps are to kind of build that
Yeah.
resilience. So I
Yes,
was talking
ma'am.
about the mindset. So what you think, what you will impact what you feel as well as your actions. And so if you really can hone in on a positive mindset, regardless of what's happening, you continue to build resiliency there. I also think that developing a support network is key. There's such a strong sentiment with community that people sometimes lose out on when they go through challenges because they
Mm-hmm.
feel like this is only me. This is my problem. I'm the only one thinking this way, or this is I'm the only person that this challenge is happening to. But if we really tap into our network, we'll find that we're not alone. We
Mm-hmm.
are not alone. There are other people that
Mm-hmm.
may have gone through the similar struggles at the same time that we're also going through them. They may look like us. They may have some of the same background that we do. And if we can find that power in that community, that can really help us just know that we're not alone, as well as now we can build from there. I also think that I said this a little bit earlier, like learning from our experiences and
Mm-hmm.
really understanding that everything that we go through, there's a learning, there's an education there, there's something that we can take away, some little tidbit. And I think back to my days of being in church and Sunday school, vacation Bible school, that there was always a lesson that Jesus had through the parables, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
you asking Jesus just one little question, or like, how does this happen, or how can I help heal this, and he's got a whole lesson for you. Like,
Yeah.
it takes all of that. Yes, it takes all of that. So what do we need to learn from our trials and tribulations, right? And so I think that's a big thing. And then last few things are having some type of self-compassion. And we spoke about this before, kind of
Yes.
just taking a moment, taking a beat, being okay with
Yes.
not being okay. Um,
Yes.
and I was very
Absolutely.
transparent with my clients yesterday. And I can do that because I know my clients, they know me. A lot of them look like me. We may have some of the same political affiliations. Sometimes we don't, but I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
honest. They're pretty honest with me,
Mm-hmm.
of course. I'm their therapist. And so I told them, I said, look, I may not be as okay as I normally am today.
Mm-hmm.
And they were
Mm-hmm.
fine with it. Some folks were like, oh, you probably shouldn't say that. And I'm like, no, I need to let them know that honesty
I
from me, that I'm
yes.
not okay at a certain point where I've gotten better so I can show up for you.
Yeah.
However, I'm still not okay with everything that was transpiring. And they
Right.
embraced it. They were good with it. And one
Yeah. And
last
I
thing
and can I
I thought
and can I
about,
say and can I say something about that?
yeah,
I think as people in our profession helping others, I think they appreciate the authenticity,
Yes.
so we can show them that they're not by themselves, right? And that's one of my first matter of fact, I posted about this yesterday. It's okay to not be okay, right? And I noticed, even as I was talking to my mentor coach, of course, we had business stuff that we were supposed to talk about, but she automatically picked up because I spoke to her very early yesterday morning, and she's like, Michelle, let's pause for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're not good. And she allowed me that space to vent. But like I said, I already had in my mind some of the things that I knew I needed to do for myself to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things that I knew I wanted to do also in helping people was to pull something together, which was this podcast, this live stream, right? Because I think I reached out to all of y'all. I reached out to my therapist circle and like, who's available for a podcast?
Early. You went early.
I did that early, but that was my way of healing as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me as well. But important to check yourself and
Mm-hmm.
and
And
and know that there are people who care enough
yes.
to recognize that you are not okay, right?
Yes. And I
Mhm.
think it's so important too to remember that when we have an idea, although it may not be as unique as we think it should be, it doesn't really need to be unique. We just have
Right.
to act on it. And so I
Mhm.
appreciate you acting on it and reaching out because I was in other circles having conversations
Yeah.
and they were talking about how do we get more messages out. And I don't necessarily have a podcast, a platform. I don't go on YouTube, but you
Right.
do. And you reached out.
Yeah.
I said, well, is this an opportunity? I'll take it
Absolutely.
if she's offering. I'll take it because
Absolutely.
there were conversations happening, and you brought that platform to the masses, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate those of you because I got several callbacks saying, Michelle, this is a great idea. So I appreciate that. Um, the one thing you didn't talk about, you might have alluded to it, but also I think is important is understanding your triggers. You did talk about your past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding your past, but I think also understanding your triggers help you to kind of figure out, okay, am I responding because of something that has happened to me in the past?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or is this something new? Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. When we look at the world of trauma and different actions that may have happened for people, they're going to be some type of remembrance of these different adversities. And when something new happens, it may very well mirror those same emotions that you've had before. And so we always say, um, sometimes when we have certain actions that we kind of go to next. So let's say, for instance, if I'm really upset, something's happened, and then I decide I'm just going to sleep it off. I'm
Right.
sleeping it off because that's my pattern, right?
Right.
But have I really processed what happened? And am I really that tired? Or is it remnants of something else that's happened prior to? And so people really have to kind of dig down to see what are those triggers. And is it, like you said, is it something current that's happening? Or now am I, let's say I'm hiding out, trying to sleep the day away. And it really was something else that brought up the old feelings that really
Right.
was what the problem was. And maybe this issue right now is not even that pertinent, but
Right.
it made me remember something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
also, I find it's also a reference point for you to reflect on how did you deal with that situation, right?
Yes.
Because you may be able to tap into that in terms of how you move forward currently in
Mhm.
whatever adversity that you're dealing with, or you might have to do something a little different, right? But
Right.
understanding where that response may be coming from, and it
Mhm.
could be from something that occurred in the past,
Yeah, and a
right?
lot of times if we've encountered something and it's very familiar, we're going to do something that's also very familiar, which may not be helpful to us. It may not be
Right.
positive. So, like I
Right.
said, maybe we're just sleeping it off and we're just not going to have a conversation with people, or we're just going to call out of work or whatever. And it's like, is that the best response at this particular moment?
Yes.
And is this situation is it very similar to the other situation, or what? Like you said, what do we tap into that we actually were able to accomplish then? Why can't we do some of that stuff now?
Yeah. So what are some barriers to becoming resilient?
Ooh, so big one is fear. Big one
Mm-hmm.
is fear. People
Mm-hmm.
are afraid of what they don't know. They're afraid of what they haven't encountered. Or, like you said, if it reminds us of something in the past, oh no, we don't want to deal with it again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
fear kind of just paralyzes people, and it's
Yeah.
a it's a definite response that happens. I definitely believe that our own self doubt and lack of self confidence will hold us back from resiliency.
Yeah.
The words that we say to ourselves and that
Mm-hmm.
others say to us, I also believe are barriers to resiliency, because we may think certain things, but if somebody also says it, it holds some weight and power. There's some
Yeah.
power in the tongue. And it's very important that as we speak to people, we speak something towards life, towards
Mm-hmm.
positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there can be correction and constructive criticism and things like that. But when we do those, we try to sandwich it with some positivity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That should be the golden rule, but it doesn't always come out that way. And so people have to be very mindful of how they speak to people.
Mm-hmm.
The work I used to do with youth and children, I just feel so blessed of the way I grew up. And shout out to my mom and dad. They were great because they instilled a lot of positive words in us
Right.
and
Right.
actions. They gave us a lot of things and showed us a lot, but they
Mm-hmm.
told us that we were great. They told us that we could do anything. They told
Right.
us that we have this whole American dream, that we can just be anything we wanted to be, right? But there were so many kids that didn't grow up like that. So
Yeah.
it surprised me when I was in the education field that kids had so much self-doubt and so much lack of confidence, but it was because of the words they heard at home, the words that their
Absolutely.
friends said them that now they believe because their mama also said it. And that's not okay. That is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the we bring life to the words that we speak. So if we're talking negativity, guess what? You're creating that negative aura around you.
Mhm.
And as you said, think about the people you're surrounding yourself with. Now, unfortunately, depending on how old you are, you can't get away from you're in a
Some people,
household,
right?
parents who are not positive, right? You are that impacts you, right?
Hmm.
But as you said, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are positive, I mean, just
Hmm.
think about how your demeanor when you're around people who exude positivity, right?
Yeah.
There's something about entering that environment that
Hmm.
changes how we react, how we
Hmm.
respond as
Yep.
well.
And as
Yeah.
we find those positive spaces, some people find it foreign.
Yeah.
They're not used to it. And
Yeah.
so in the space that I'm in, I do a lot of work with them and kind of retraining their brain to understand that no, this person is
Mhm.
speaking positively to you. You can trust them.
Mhm.
You should not
Mhm.
be paranoid about this. Or also that let's reflect on the relationship that you're in. Does this type of wording, this type of negativity sound similar to what you grew up with? Is this
Right.
what we choose to stay in? How do we
Yeah.
get that person to now speak positive to us? Or, are there other alternatives? If they're not, bound in a covenant, there are options. They don't have to stay in that relationship. They can modify, they can get that person to hopefully speak more positively. Um, and that's where a lot of times we get to this struggle of people not embracing change.
Yes.
If a person is going to be resilient, they have to get to a point where they're ready to embrace change.
Yeah.
Because in order to get to that other side, to get to that more stable state,
Mhm.
they've got to embrace some change. And it's not
Yeah.
going to be the way it was. And you definitely
Right.
don't want to stay in that adversity that's not helping. So now we
Yeah.
got to move to something new.
Yeah.
And that can
And
be tough.
people move into that space of change at different modes. One of the things, I had another friend who's also in the helping space, and I remember seeing her post. She said, "I need 72 hours. I know I need 72 hours to get through this." So
Mm,
understanding that some people may need longer time, some people can get
yes.
through it very quickly, right? And as I
Yes.
mentioned earlier, I'm one of those people. I try not to stew in that negativity space for too long because I know for me it's not healthy. So I try to move forward. Let's talk a little bit about stress because I'm sure when people are coming to you, they're in this mindset of being stressed, which can wreak havoc on us. So Can you talk a little bit about that and how you help people through that? Or what advice would you have in that space?
So for managing stress, that deals a lot with also reflection and kind of taking an inventory of where you are and what's
Mhm.
happening around you. And so when people, let's say, are at these high stress levels, they're doing a lot of things, but they don't realize they're doing a lot of things because they're trying to keep moving,
Yes.
because the stress is causing them either anxiety, depression, angst,
Mhm.
fear,
Mhm.
something. And so a lot of times I'll see women, especially women, they've got 10,000 things on their agendas. They are taking the kids all over the place. And I'm like, but you're sitting on my couch and your hair's falling out, or you're upset about something, but you cannot communicate it. Let's scale some things back. And they're like, I can't
Mhm.
take all these things off my plate. I'm like, who said you can't? Who said you
Right.
can't? Right. And
Right.
so sometimes we don't even realize we're in stress because we just keep rolling. We keep
Yeah.
rolling. And a lot of times it can look like depression. It can look like anxiety. And so we kind of pare down and try to figure out what it is. And it's not just, oh, my boss is now asking me to do this new thing at work. That's probably just the straw that broke the camel's back. There's probably a whole litany of things that are underneath there that are also
Yeah.
stressing that person out. And
Yeah.
people have to kind of really just take an inventory to understand, what all do I have going on? How am I reacting and acting? And then, do I even want to do all these things? Do I even
Yeah.
want to feel this way? Right?
Yeah.
We have so
Yeah.
much autonomy and choices that sometimes we don't even realize we have because we're so intertwined in
Yeah.
everything that we're doing.
And there's so much power in the word no. Being able to say no. And
Yes,
sometimes we
ma'am.
just give up that power, right? I have this saying no to others is saying yes to yourself, right? So
Hmm.
how do you ensure you are having the time and space to do the things that you really want to be doing, and focusing on our peace is definitely one of the things that we want to be doing in this space of building resiliency. Um, Dr. Renee, what role does compassion and self-compassion play in resilience?
Oh, it plays a huge role. Just like you
Mm-hmm.
were saying, that we've got to know ourselves. We've got to give ourselves time. Somebody needed 72 hours. They knew themselves. They knew
Yes.
exactly how much time they needed. That is a key for building resilience. If you know kind of the time frame you might need for whatever major event comes up, and you don't have to know it down to the hour or minute, but if you know, I'm gonna need some time, let
Mm-hmm.
me call you. Don't call me anymore. Let me call you. If you can at
Yeah.
least, communicate that, I think that's helpful. But understanding that everybody's not the same. Whereas the
Absolutely.
person may have needed 72 hours, I might have only needed an hour.
Yeah.
But my setup is different. My background is different. My pedigree is different. Your
Yeah.
pedigree is different. And so
Yeah.
everybody's resilience numbers are not going to necessarily be the same. An extra task that a boss may ask you to do may not break your back, but it's going to break somebody else's back. And so we
Mm-hmm.
have to
Mm-hmm.
be very just okay with all of us being different and
Mm-hmm.
needing that personal time and space to have that compassion for ourselves and give ourselves some grace.
Mm-hmm.
We Social media, I think, is a great tool. I love it. I really do. But sometimes we're up there and people are seeing things that they're only showing you what's great. They're only
Right.
showing you some really good things when they look nice. Of course, like when we got up here tonight, we got to put on a little lipstick, put our hair back,
I
put our hair
tried.
down, you know. We have to do some of those things, right? Just to present, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But real life doesn't always look like what social media shows. And so you
Yeah.
don't know what that person went through just to get on camera.
Yeah.
You don't know what they
Yeah.
went through just to get on that trip to Bali. You
Yeah.
have no idea. So, what you might need and how you're built, you've got to have compassion for that and be okay with it. Be okay
Mm-hmm.
with, I need my 24 hours, I need my 72 hours, I need a 1 week break from work. I
Mm-hmm.
only need a 2 day break from work,
Right.
whatever
Right.
your space is.
Right. Yeah. And we'll talk about some tools and techniques people can use to help them um, manage through that point of being in a good place. But let's talk a minute about cultivating relationships, the role that plays, because it can help or hinder you,
Mm,
right? If you're not surrounding yourself with the right people. And you talked a little bit about even those individuals who may not be speaking positivity and things like that. So can you talk about how can someone cultivate relationships that help rather than hinder?
So looking at the relationship to see what am I getting out of it? How is
Mm-hmm.
it beneficial to me? What can I bring to the relationship as well? And like, how am I growing in that? So there'll probably be some relationships that people have that they outgrow for different
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah.
Um, and folks struggle with that. It's okay. Um,
I'm a
and
true believer. Some people are here for a season, others are here for you know what I mean? Lifetime
absolutely.
reason. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So looking at all of that in the relationship, then you kind of know how to approach it. If you know
Mm-hmm.
this is something I'm trying to grow in, let's say I'm trying to grow in my compassion for elders. And so if
Mm-hmm.
that's my passion and I want to really grow in that, then I cultivate those relationships that are with folks who are elderly, or maybe I would say aging gracefully. I like that one.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And knowing that, the grandmothers and the uncles, the great aunts and the great uncles, that those relationships you're trying to grow gracefully and try to have compassion and patience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if
Mm-hmm.
you look at it that way, then I'm going into this relationship that way, but I love these people. I care about them. They put some value into my life. I want to put value back into theirs, right?
Yeah.
And so just really taking an inventory of what those relationships are like and why you're there, what you're getting, what they're getting. I think it's helpful for people to say, okay, this is why I call. This is why
Right.
I say, hey, I want to stop by, or I make the trip to come up, north, or I make the trip to down south to go see so and so. But that also, goes for our friendships. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much separation these days, and we're so busy that we don't really go have lunch, have a cup of coffee like we should, and check in on people, call
Yeah.
people. Nothing wrong
Yeah.
with sending a little note on social media, nothing wrong with texting, but they can be very impersonal. And so really picking up the phone and just offering a lending ear, just letting somebody you're concerned about them, or you're checking in on them, is important. And it goes both ways. So I'll always work with people when we're talking about relationships. I'm like, it's on both sides. So
Yeah.
that means I know you feel like they did you wrong or they didn't do, but now can you make a step?
Right.
Like any
Right.
step.
Right.
And some
And
people are like, no, I'm done. I don't want to make any more steps. And I'm like, well, then that's the choice you make. But then you
right.
can't, why would you continue to be upset with them when you've made a choice to disengage?
Right. And the thing again, around this topic of building resiliency, if you're around people again who are constantly negative, right,
Hmm.
that depletes, I know for me, it depletes my energy and prevents me from, you talk about protecting your peace,
Mm,
protects me from being in a place of peace, which helps me with my resiliency,
hmm.
right? The other thing, and I shared this with someone, compassion costs us nothing, but it can reap so
Yes.
many benefits, right? When someone knows that you care enough to reach out, which I did this week. As a matter of fact, one of my neighbors, who doesn't look like me, she reached out to me um, this morning. She said, "Michelle, I'm just checking on you, right? Want to make sure you're okay." And I appreciated that, right? Because I felt heard and seen. And I
Hmm.
also know, she and I have similar views as well. So it was good to kind of hear that, to be seen and
Hmm.
heard. But compassion costs us nothing. It really doesn't, but can reap so many benefits in terms of how it makes other people feel.
Absolutely.
Right?
And like you said, you're connected, you're heard.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful bond that's formed and now helps you continue to build your resiliency.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talked about self-compassion. Just talk a little bit more about that.
So that goes with loving yourself, that goes with
Mhm.
self-care. And it's so important to just love every fiber of your being, who you are, how you're made up,
Mhm.
how your mind works.
Mhm.
Um, some people don't really start loving themselves until they see how somebody else loves them.
Mhm.
Um, and that can happen in childhood, that can
Yeah.
happen in adulthood. But that is a beautiful thing when you understand how you work and how you tick.
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself and loving yourself enough to take that time to understand who you are, to take moments out and spend time with just you.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. Some of the best times I've ever had are just by myself. Um,
Amen.
and
You
I'm a
gotta love
people
yourself,
person.
because a lot of times we look for love in other people, or look to feel good in other people, and it's like people can sense when you're not in a good place, and you got to ask yourself, do people want to be around you when you're like that,
Ooh.
right? Well, so that self-care, self-love, self-compassion is very important. Allowing you the space to heal as well, right?
Mhm.
So that you can be the best person you can be for yourself, and also for others.
Mm. And I think it goes along with the way you were talking about the negativity that can be there
Yeah,
and the words that people speak. If we love ourselves enough, we're going to make choices to be in positive spaces. And if
yeah,
that means we have to limit people's access to us, it is what it is. And I know that it's family,
absolutely.
and I'm not for the cancel culture. I don't do that.
Right,
I
right,
don't even condone it. I tell people, let's work with it because you never
right.
know who you might need. You never know. But
Absolutely,
some people
absolutely.
don't get access to you like they used to. That means that you don't just always pick up the phone call. That doesn't mean you just go running when this person asks for something else, especially if that negativity causes more harm than anything. If it's not encouraging, because I know people thinking about like sport coaching in sports,
Yes.
there's a lot of negativity. You didn't do this right, change that around.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot of that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And there's a balance. There should be a balance, right? But if it's not that, and you're not getting like, a major league deal, you don't have to be involved in it. You can
yeah,
limit that access to that person, and
yeah.
that's compassion for
Well,
yourself.
and
That's
that's
love.
again, and that's we give more control to people than we should, right?
Mm.
We have more control over things than we think, and a lot of times we're giving that power away. So let's talk a little bit about practices and habits. What do you recommend to people who are wanting to strengthen their resilience longer term? What advice
So
do you have?
piggybacking on the staying connected to people, that's
Mhm,
huge. Those phone
mhm.
calls, texts, and meetups. See people in real life.
Have to meet up with
In
some
real
friends
life.
on Friday because we need it. Yes, absolutely, tomorrow.
That's super important.
Mhm.
Self-care is important. So doing those things that you love to do that are your interest that maybe nobody else is interested in, that totally matters. Whatever, if
Mhm.
it's in the arts, if it's sports. I like pickleball, but I don't have that many friends or family that like pickleball, but
Oh, I
I
need to
know
get
there's
you
a whole
connected to
community.
somebody who does a couple people. We have someone
Exactly.
in our chapter who do that.
Yes,
So,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I've been seeing the posts and I'm like, I gotta get out there. I gotta get out there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
things like that, I need to stay connected to. It's not just social media. I need to actually go. I need to see people, be in people's spaces, right?
yeah.
Um, I think also taking an inventory of things that you've gone through. And so that could be in the manner of just making a list. I love lists. So a list of
Okay.
I've gone through these challenges and like you said before, how I got over, how I made it
Yeah,
through, right?
yeah.
What was the determining factor? Who else was in my corner? What did I finally realize? Did I pray? Was I fasting? Like all these
Mhm,
things, right?
mhm.
And some things do not come but by fasting.
Right.
And so that's important. And then if you're taking that type of inventory, you can also journal. And I think daily practicing of journaling is important too, because if you're building resilience, you are finding silver linings. You
Yeah,
are having an attitude of gratitude. You have positive self talk. You have goals and aspirations. You are living intentionally. And so, in order to do that, you more than likely need to start tracking it. You need to have a journal. And
yeah,
that I love my journals that I have. I have journals going
yeah.
back to when I was in high school, and I will
Mm,
reread them. I've
yeah,
read them several times because I want to see what was young Renee thinking about before she got
mm,
married. What was Renee thinking about before she went to Africa? What was Renee thinking about before she graduated high school or
right.
when she was in college?
Yeah,
College was a whole lot going on. And so when she was in college, what was Renee thinking about, right? Um,
yeah,
how did
yeah,
Renee make it? Who was significant in Renee's life, right? And so everybody has those stories, but if you don't journal,
yeah,
you don't have that path. You don't have that story to reflect on to see. um, and to share. So these are
Yeah.
things that I can share with my child and share. Hey, I was able to accomplish this. I felt just like you when I was in middle school. I felt like this when I was in high school. But
Yeah.
this is how I made it through. This is how I was able to get A's or to make the the team or whichever. Or when I didn't make things, I didn't do great on test or whatever, how I made it and what I was also thinking. But that journaling piece, people miss it, but it should
Hmm.
be almost a daily habit if you can do it weekly. And if you can't, like, however you can do it. But I tell people, technology is our friend.
It
So
is.
you
It
don't have to
is.
have a pretty journal that you write
Yeah.
in. You can't
Yeah.
find your favorite pen, put it on your phone, email
Yeah.
yourself, use your
Yeah.
notes
And it's
app.
funny you talk about that. So I'm taking a neuroscience class for coaches, and one of the things that we've been talking about, it's called the body budget tracker.
Mm,
And one of the things that our instructor has been having us do is taking note of our mood, our energy, our focus, our motivation, our diet, our digestion, our exercise and sleep, because all of that plays into how we are showing up,
mhm,
right? And our ability to be resilient, right? So as you're talking about journaling, also taking note to when you're in this space of negative emotion or in this space of stress, whatever that is, right? Taking note of what's happening around you and what are you doing to kind of move forward
mhm.
and take care of those things.
It's
So,
something powerful about writing things down and
mhm,
seeing it in black and white. So whether
yes,
it's typed up or written, written is more powerful than typed for most people because it's an
yeah,
action of what you're doing and you've actually
mhm,
written the words. It's in your
mhm,
own handwriting. So that
yeah,
it's something about it. So you probably have worked with some people maybe on budgets, and people get that little tracker from their bank, but also
yep,
now they have to write down everything that they spent.
mhm,
It's mind-boggling. They're like, "Well, I didn't even know." No, you didn't because you
mhm,
just swiped your card. No, you didn't
yeah,
because you just ate out and ate out.
yeah,
But now you know that 70% of your budget is on eating out,
yeah. And
but that's
even
not what your
Dr.
intention was.
Renee, because I deal with a lot of women who come to me because one, they're stressed, they don't know how to say no. And even writing down all the daily, what are you involved in? What are you spending your time doing? And to go back and see the amount of time that we're spending on things that really we don't have a passion about, we don't really want to do. So
Mhm,
journaling definitely is powerful, even if you do it for a week or 2 weeks. I usually tell people try to do it for Lisa at minimum a week. If you
mhm.
do it for 2 weeks, it really it starts to tell you a story, right?
Yes,
2 weeks or longer
yes.
really starts to tell you a story.
Yeah, I have some
So,
people that will, when we do a specific journaling task, similar to what
mhm,
you're talking about, like you track your food or you track your
right.
money. I have them
Yeah.
track emotions, especially like
Yeah.
anxiety. They tell me
Absolutely.
they don't get past 2 3 days because they're like, "Do you know how many things I had to write down?" I said, "That's how much your brain is moving.
Exactly. And that's why
You
it's
need to
important to
see it."
do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I know there are a lot of young adults this week who have been struggling. Matter of fact, I was
Mhm,
talking to communicating with several of my friends, and they were talking about how they're young adults who voted for the first time, right? And this is not about the voting piece, but the emotion, right? That they're a lot of them may be dealing with for the first time, right? Around all things our government process. What advice would you give to our young adults about how they manage adversity? And is it different than what we talked about?
Um, it's a little different because they're young and young adults are very action oriented, sometimes on the extremes basis where they
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
everything is, it's everybody, it's all things,
Mm,
everybody's doing it, and it's like they're really not, or um, no one is doing XYZ. And so when they participate in things such as an election, or for the first time they're doing something like a job interview, the stakes are high.
right.
If they have any letdown, if it doesn't go the way they thought it should go, um their letdown is going to be so much more detrimental than an adult's letdown. Somebody that's over
Yeah.
25. So that I would say the 12 to 20 age range, it's do or die for them.
Yeah.
And just helping them level set it, helping them understand that it's normal to have setbacks. It's normal to not always get your way. We don't always win. We don't always have the outcome that we're looking for. But then reminding them again, because they come from education, they're all somehow in school or some type of learning that they're doing, that what have you learned from this process? So, what does
Mm-hmm.
this feel like? And so, it feels like a letdown or it feels very anxiety ridden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if that's what the case, then how do you deal with the anxiety that you felt with being a part of this process?
Mm-hmm.
But then I think go back to the historical state of it all. Like
Mm-hmm.
what is voting? Who had rights and access to voting at what times? And why is it important? And it's not just important on the national level, it's so
Right.
important on the local levels.
Yeah.
It's important in their schools when they
Yes.
have their little local elections
Well,
on
it's
the
it's allowing your voice to be heard, right? And it's about all processes that we have the right to engage in. It's like, why would you not do that? So you don't want to stop that. But to your
exactly. And
point,
it's their
yeah,
civic duty. It is how we engage in the work that's happening. And it's
yeah,
one piece of it. It's just one part. So yes,
yes,
I vote, but do I also attend these city council meetings?
yeah,
Do I ask and give feedback on referendums?
right.
Do I watch the forums that are happening or engage in other community organizations that are doing this work day in and day out?
Mm-hmm.
Not just this one day to vote. And so, several of them, if they voted in this national election this year for the first time, they're going to forget that in March, there are probably some other elections and primaries that are going to come up. That next
Yeah.
November, there's another type of vote that happens. But in the meantime, there's still work to be done. And the more we can involve them in the work that needs to be done with our civic organizations and community organizations, and just getting them involved as those youth leader groups,
Mm-hmm.
it's imperative so that they see it all the time. It's not just this one time. This is one
Right.
part of the civic duty. The rest of the civic duty is there's a pothole on the street and it's going to
Yeah.
mess up my grandma's tires. Let me call and let me see if my
Yeah.
grandma, we can get
Yeah.
that fixed on my grandma's street, right? That's
Yeah.
part of our civic duty. That's how we
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit and finally, I'm looking at some of the comments. Thank you, my friends who have joined, who I can see. I see Dominique, Melissa, Nat. Hey, Nat. um, and Stephanie. And I don't know if some of y'all are joining from YouTube. I'm seeing some of the people who are writing comments, but I can't see everybody who's there. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat for myself and Dr. Renee to see, and we'll try to answer them while we're here. But advice too, and you kind of tapped into this a little bit, but what I want to talk about next and a final moments is around parents helping their kids. And also I want to talk a little bit about leaders and employees, because at the end of the day, particularly on the space of employers, right? People are bringing their whole selves to work, right? We had this whole big thing. I know when I was in the workplace, it's like, we want people to be authentic. We want people to bring their whole selves to work. Well, guess what? People are. So
Yes.
leader, how are you leading through this?
Mhm.
Right? And employees, what are you doing? But anything else you would say in terms of to parents who are having to help their kids manage through
Mhm.
this process of being resilient? What would you
Yeah.
what would you share? Anything additional you would share?
I think it's important to
And in
be honest.
general, I'm not just talking about
Yeah.
the,
In general,
the
yeah.
space we're
To
in. Yes.
Yeah, to be honest about whatever the adversity is and happening, and be factual.
Right.
I think that's super important because there's a lot of misinformation out there and kind of teaching them how to find the right information. So don't just
Mm-hmm.
tell them what the truth is, like show them, break out the
Mm-hmm.
encyclopedia, break
Mm-hmm.
out Wikipedia
Mm-hmm.
or whatever your source
Mm-hmm.
is to actually show what the civic process is or why this particular thing has happened, that they can see it, right?
Right.
And I think too that having some healthy discord is
Mm-hmm.
important as well. So even in
Mm-hmm.
the household, to share with them, okay, yeah, this sucks. This is a terrible situation, or I'm sorry that you didn't get that job. but what else, what else can we do? Let me tell you about when I didn't get a job, and
Yeah.
share that. Because,
Yeah.
those stories are helpful. Sometimes the kids don't want to hear it. The young adults don't want to hear it, but it's also like they're actually listening. They're really listening.
They
Um,
are. And what I share, and I know this for a fact, I think that sometimes even as aunties, godparents, what have you, sometimes they may not hear from their parents, they may not listen to their parents, but they will listen to someone else. So
mhm,
your role as a mentor, an auntie,
auntie.
a godparent, what
Mhm,
have you, don't take that role lightly, because
yeah,
it can help reinforce what parents are sharing and
yeah.
saying. So I'm
I've
gonna
been an
move.
auntie
Go
since I
ahead.
was 9 years old, and I
Okay.
took the job very
Very
seriously,
seriously. Okay.
even
All
at 9.
right.
But I love my nieces and nephews. I feel like they were my first children for sure.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
did my little campaign of trying to text them and encourage them to get out and vote, because a lot of them are over 18 now. I'm so
Yeah.
proud that
Yeah.
all of them participated. But guess what? Several of them checked on me,
Yeah.
just
Well,
like
we
your
want to be
son
checked
checked
on as
on you.
well. Yeah, absolutely. I
Yes.
tell my nieces and nephews all the time. I'm like, look, give me a call sometimes. I like to hear from you. I would like for you to
Yeah. I thought it
um
was the
be
cutest thing that they
proactive and
checked
call
on me.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, "We're
Yeah.
just checking in. We know we all went out to vote and da 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 da."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, we
Yeah.
did. And so let's talk about it." And we did. We had some healthy discord. I tried to be as honest as I could, but I was also like, "Look, the work doesn't stop. Even
Yeah.
if I didn't get the outcome I wanted, did you get the outcome you wanted? Now, even if you
Right.
didn't or did, what's the work we have to do now? Because
Yeah.
this we
Yeah.
live here.
Yeah.
This we
Yeah.
have to continue to live, breathe, and prosper here. And if that's the case, then I need to be involved."
Yeah. And what I would say to leaders is, you have to allow space for people um to process whatever is happening,
Mm,
and to think that people are only going to be one way at home and not bring that emotion to the workplace. It shows up in the workplace,
hmm.
right? So how do you ensure that you're providing that space where people can be themselves, and also directing them to the proper resources, right? The companies have EAP, it's employee assistance programs,
Hmm.
and things like that. So offer up the support that they can get so that they can show up in the workplace
Hmm.
as productive as they can be,
Yeah. What I'm
right?
finding with a lot of companies, I thought it was really great that they gave people moments. They
Yeah.
offered time for people to take off if they needed. And folks are also like, there's this, the catchphrase of the mental health day, but it's really true. And I've
Mhm.
worked with different organizations at times. I'm going to speak on stress management
Yeah.
in a few weeks with a local organization. And prior to, what did we talk about? I forgot the topic, but talk about different topics about like environment and atmosphere and things like that. But they stress, and I love working with companies like that. They stress to them, look, if the work we're doing is stressing you out, which it can, because
Yeah.
depending on what's happening, um, we do want you to take care of yourself, and we're going to ensure that by bringing in a mental health expert. Which I was like, thank you, that's why I'm here. And I kept reiterating that to them, and they were like, so they really do want us to take the time off. I said, they'd rather you take the time off now
Yeah.
than crash and burn later
Yeah,
or
take
get really
advantage
sick.
of it. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't even know what benefits they have. And I know my last company, they offered various concierge services,
Hmm.
in addition to employee assistance program, legal
Yeah.
support, and things like that. So take advantage of it. A lot of times you don't have to come out of pocket. You offer you a certain number of sessions and things like that.
Right. You get
So
6
take
sessions for
advantage of that.
free. Figure out
Absolutely.
one topic you
Absolutely.
gotta talk about and figure that out and then move on to the
Hmm.
next thing. But they're there. And I've seen some companies, they do unlimited EAP.
They do that. And speaking of resilience, I mean, I'm gonna be talking about this probably sometime next year, but even for me, when we were dealing with my dad was alive, dealing with just how having to I say it, parenting parents. I found a lot of
Mhm.
help even with that. Talk about being a time where I had to be resilient for
Yes.
myself. That was definitely a time. But listen, I'm going through the comments. Let's see what we have. Dominique has a question. She says, "How do you stay hopeful when the disappointment seems insurmountable?"
Mm.
Insurmountable. What do you have to say about that, Dr. Renee?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was gonna say, sounds like prayer time for sure.
Mhm.
Whether you are spiritual, religious or not, that's meditation, that's taking a beat. Um, if it looks that tough, insurmountable is a huge word.
It is.
If it looks that tough, you you're not just gonna run to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You might need a game plan.
Yeah.
So
And
taking
let's
that
and let's
to get a game plan together is important for sure.
yeah. And let's talk about when should someone see a therapist, Dr. Renee?
I say anytime.
Okay.
I always say that. I say
Okay.
anytime, but I definitely think that there's some things that people struggle with that are just beyond the best friend. They're beyond the coach. They're tapping into some levels of anxiety and depression that just are things that we would have to track and figure out and help them
Right.
with, and potentially medicine if that's the case that people might need. Some
Yeah.
things are hormonal, some things
Right.
have to do with the way our bodies are set up and has nothing to do with the situations we're in. The situations we're in just are exacerbating it.
Yeah.
Several people that have major chronic health illnesses also have mental health challenges
Right.
because of their genetic, I mean, the makeup of what's going on in their body, but also the challenges that that chronic illness brings up.
Yeah.
And so when you look at all of that, I love when people say, well, let me tap in and get a therapist before things get bad. That's a
Right.
good time. But also when things are bad, call somebody.
Yeah.
But when a person is feeling as if almost like Dominique has said, that it's insurmountable, there's no way out, and that's lasting more days than not,
Right.
reaching out for help is very, very important. It's one
Yeah.
thing to say this looks insurmountable today and tomorrow, but next week we don't even feel that way anymore. That's
Right.
different. But if we're still
Yeah.
feeling that way weeks on end, it's definitely time to get in touch with a professional, because the more we sit and stew, like you said earlier, the
Hmm.
more our thoughts continue to be bringing down our mood, and then our behavior is going to start enacting as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I usually tell people, when they're contacting a coach, it's because they're ready to take action.
yes.
Right. You have to be ready because that's what coaches help you to do is to take action, put together a plan and move forward. If there's something deeper going on, and I have had people contact me for coaching, and I was like, no, you need to talk to a therapist right now because you're not in that space. And here is why.
Hmm.
Right. So just knowing that there is help out there, right? And when it comes to a point of being insurmountable, yeah, I tap into your professionals who can help you. And a licensed therapist is definitely one of
Hmm.
those people. So
Yeah.
speaking of
'Cause we
which, we're
get
gonna
to a
close.
point.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
good.
Dr. Renee.
Oh,
Go ahead, finish.
I was gonna say we get to a point even in therapy where people are doing so well that now they're ready for a lot of action. They're ready to roll
Right,
forward, right? And that
right,
is the space that we try to get them to. But sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it's not just the talk therapy that we do and the interventions and, oh, we're gonna breathe and we're gonna journal and we're gonna write. It's also like maybe there's medicine that can help get you over that cusp. Maybe an environmental change has to happen. And
right,
once they get to that cusp and they're ready for more actionable steps, you're exactly right. That's when they're ready to blast off and go into
right.
coaching. And then they can see so much more growth.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Renee, how can people reach out to you? Are you taking clients? And I know I have people on this call who are not just from North Carolina, because you are here with me in North
Yes.
Carolina, but tell people how they can reach out to you.
So I am the executive director of Renewed Strength Counseling Services, and I am licensed in multiple states. So Florida, North Carolina, New Jersey, Oregon, California, almost forgot,
Okay.
and soon to be South Carolina. And
Okay.
several of the other clinicians in the practice are also licensed in Florida and New Jersey as well, and pending California. So we see a gamut of people. We do have availability. My availability, of course, is usually pretty limited because I'm doing most of the administrative tasks and supervision with the practice. So I don't see but so many clients during the week. But the rest of the clinicians, I have some great clinicians that are amazing, have certain specialties with couples and trauma, and working with veterans and seniors,
Yeah.
and kiddos.
Yeah.
And my a co-owner, Lucretia, is also getting certified in play therapy. And so that is a
Okay.
huge, huge area. And so we are at www.renewed-strength.com. We're on
Okay.
Instagram at Renewed Strength. PLLC, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And I'm on TikTok as Dr. Renee Speaks and
And I
Instagram.
and what I'll do is I'll put your one of the things I'll do is I'll put your website and your Instagram information and other information. I'll
Mhm.
post that
Yeah.
in my thank you message for everyone. What do you have coming up? Anything you have coming up that people can tap
Yes, I
into?
realize
Yeah.
I'm very busy this month
Yes,
somehow.
ma'am.
I have a few speaking engagements. Tomorrow, I'm speaking at a statewide conference for NAMI, and I'm speaking on postpartum depression and how the whole family can
Okay.
transition well. Super excited about that because that is my niche. That's my area, talking about my pregnant ladies,
Yes.
my mummies. And then the following week, I'm also speaking with NAMI NC on their NAMI at Noon series, which is a really cool series. That's the 13th. And we'll be talking about actually the superwoman syndrome. And so how that affects
Mm.
our BIPOC
Mm.
population as well. And so I'm looking forward to that conversation. Wonderful woman, Amy, who's putting that together, Amy Brundle. And
Okay.
that could be a fun time. Every NAMI at Noon has been very interesting, the different topics that have been brought up. And so I'll be speaking on that later in
And
the month.
remind people what NAMI stands, National
Oh, NAMI,
Association of Mental
National
Health
Alliance of Mental
Alliance.
Illness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All
Yep.
right.
And then later in the
Cool.
month, I'm doing some couples workshops.
Okay.
And then at the I feel like it's December, I hope, but I think she put it at the end of November. I'm not sure, but I'll be speaking at a local business, helping them with stress management right before the holidays.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And you do you have all of this on your website? Some of these engagements on your
Yes, some of these
website?
events are
Okay.
on the website,
All right.
definitely on social media.
So I'll make
Yep.
sure I post that. But I
Mhm.
want to thank you, one, for answering my call.
Thank you.
You have been one of those people, and we've been following each other now for a little bit.
Hmm.
My chapter soror, but I appreciate you. I love your heart, and
Thank you.
I love your advice. And you're someone who I know I can reach out to if I have something on my mind. It's like, I need your help with with something. So I appreciate you so much. I'm gonna put you in the studio so I can close out. But thank
Okay.
you. I don't see
Can
any other
I
questions. Yes,
can I
go ahead.
mention one more thing? I forgot.
Yes.
We are starting a grief series, so a
Okay.
grief group, and that will start. I want to say the sorry, the end of November.
Okay.
And so we're hoping to get at least 4 sessions in before the end of the year. We know that the end of the year, we've talked about this before about prolonged grief disorder and dealing with
Right.
loss, that the end of the year is a tough time for people. And so we're going to start our grief series then, and we'll roll it into the new year as well. And we'll also be starting a parenting series as well. And these are all
Okay.
going to be groups. And so
Okay.
there'll be closed groups. Well, the grief series will be an open group, but the parenting group probably be open to where people can kind of come in and go when they need. But some of them will be in person, some will be virtual. And so
Yeah.
you know that people need this space and time just to talk about loss and
Absolutely.
their loved ones. And I'm happy to bring that to them.
Good, good. Well, again, I thank you and I feel honored that you were able to take the time to be with me tonight. I'm going to put you in the green room and just close out, y'all. So thank you for all of you who were able to tune in this evening. I really do hope it helped you to, one, think about where you are on the heels of this week, but even beyond. I hope some of the information that you heard will help you to build your resilience going forward. Um, you can find me at www.mybesteveryday.com. I'm in the midst of a sister chat series for Real Conversations. Like I said, this was a special episode for me, but you can find the first episode of my sister chat series. It's titled Life After 50, and got a lot of energy from that. So much so, people wanted me to do a part two, and I'm not going to do a part two podcast episode, but I will be hosting an intimate group coaching circle for people who want to continue this conversation about life after 50. I'll make sure I post that again on my Facebook page. So, go to my Facebook page, on my business page, which is www.facebook.com/my best every day. And you can find that information there. Also, episode 2 of my sister chat series will be about I am not my hair. And Lord knows there's a lot to unpack when it comes to that. From a self-esteem perspective, societal perspective. So that's the conversation that I have coming up in terms of the Sister Chat series. Okay. But like my page, like my Facebook page, if you want to be updated on the things that I have coming up, my YouTube channel, if you're watching on YouTube, definitely subscribe to YouTube so you can see the things that I have coming up. And you'll try your best to have a good week. I know, again, I know it's been rough for a lot of people, but we're gonna get through. We're gonna get through this week. We're gonna get through, and you can get through anything that you put your mind to. Okay. So, and don't be afraid to reach out for help. Take care. Have a great night. And I hope to see some of you during the next episode of Real Conversations. Bye.